So I am honored to have the opportunity to introduce this event's keynote speaker from the United States. He is Ambassador John Bolton. He's a former United States permanent representative to the United Nations and Undersecretary for State for Arms Control and International Security. I talked about the need for a firm policy toward the Iranian regime. No one in the United States government was as staunch a supporter as Ambassador Bolton in pursuit of a firm policy vis-à-vis the turbaned tyrants of Iran. With failure of the policy of appeasement and correctness of Ambassador Bolton's position has been vindicated. It is an honor for me to introduce Ambassador Bolton, and Viva Ashraf, Viva Rajavi, ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador John Bolton.
Thank you very much. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here today and to say thank you for the opportunity to address the free people of Iran. And I'd like you to know, and I'd like all the people still inside Iran to know how many Americans, how many tens of millions of Americans believe that the policy of the United States government should be regime change in Iran. I suppose even Mahmoud Ahmadinejad can hear that. I don't need to tell anybody here today how oppressive the regime is and the crimes it has committed against the people of Iran. This is not a government that's loyal to the people. This is a government that's loyal only to itself and keeping itself in power. What is important, I think, for the rest of the world to understand is how, in the past several years in particular, the regime has become increasingly a military dictatorship, that this is an oppressive, in fact, fascist regime that controls Iran today. I do think that the repression that followed last year's fraudulent June 12th presidential election was an eye-opener for many people in the West, certainly in the United States. And this is because not simply that the election itself was fraudulent, and not simply because of the brutality of the Pasdaran and the Basiji against the people of Iran, but because the entire sequence of events revealed just how basic are the flaws in the current regime and just how strong is the opposition of the people of Iran to the regime itself. I'm I must say, speaking as an American, that I found the U.S. reaction to the repression after the June 12 election as very disappointing. I think that the administration didn't want to speak the truth about what was going on inside Iran because it was still focused on the open hand that it had extended to the Iranian regime, an open hand for negotiation, particularly over the nuclear weapons program. Now, I think anyone familiar with the regime had to know at the beginning that the open hand would be rejected and that there would be no negotiations over the nuclear weapons program, and certainly no negotiations over freedom for the Iranian people. It remains to this day a disappointment that the administration in Washington hasn't realized that yet. But I do want to assure you that in the United States, among the people, in the Congress, in the media, in academic circles, there is an increasing realization that the government, the regime in Tehran, is not a regime that we can negotiate with, and that the open hand policy has failed. This meeting today is a signal both to the people still trapped inside Iran and to democratic countries all around the world that the people of Iran seek to have control over their own government, to participate in democratic elections. It is a tragedy for Iran that its best friend and closest ally in the world is North Korea. North Korea, which has its own nuclear weapons, North Korea, which pursues ballistic missile technology that threatens peace and security not only in Asia, but in the Middle East as well. North Korea, which, financed by the regime in Tehran, was building a nuclear reactor in Syria. North Korea, which partners with Iran on the nuclear program, and which is a regime that is the most dictatorial on earth today. North Korea is a prison camp. North Korea's people are on the verge of starving. North Korea still, nonetheless, pursues nuclear weapons and works with the government of Iran. This is a huge tragedy for the people of Iran. But what it reflects is their isolation, the isolation of the regime from civilized governments all around the world. And it is a fitting tribute to the free people of Iran that so many parliamentarians from Europe, from Canada, the United States, around the world have begun to see the impact of the regime for the people, on the people of Iran. It also has to be troubling that the regime's closest large friends around the world are Russia and China. China, which has never had on the mainland true democratic institutions, and Russia, which passed from authoritarianism into a period of democracy and may be passing right back into authoritarianism. This is not something that a free Iran would tolerate. Moreover, the regime's support for international terrorism, some have described it as the central banker for international terrorism, supporting terrorist groups all around the world, have helped contribute to the isolation of Iran and the increasing difficulty imposed on the Iranian people. Now, I think that the United States policy of regime change should be a very active policy. I think the first thing that we need to be clear is that the United States will not stand in the way of legitimate opposition groups of Iranians who seek regime change in Iran.